his message is what was message of defiance, and also the threat that if the Israelis are going to take action against Iran, Iran will not rush, but will also deliver a response, which will be, in his words, rational and in a timely fashion.
Let's talk the Middle East. We have to, don't we? More blasts have been reported in southern Beirut this evening with the Islamic Health Committee, that's an emergency response organization affiliated with Hezbollah, saying that 11 paramedics were killed by Israeli strikes today. And that follows the IDF warning more than 30 villages to evacuate in southern Lebanon. Meanwhile, in Iran, the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei led Friday prayers for the first time in over 4 years, calling on allies to band together and claiming that the missile attack that it launched on Israel on Tuesday night was fully legal and legitimate. And he also warned it'll be done again in the future if it becomes necessary. Let's speak to Sina Azodi, who's a professorial lecturer of international affairs at the George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs. And Professor, you specialize in Iran's nuclear program and national security. We'll get to that in a moment. But first of all, Ayatollah Khamenei's address today. What will they be making of it in Washington, Tel Aviv, and beyond? In fact, actually, what did you make of it? You know, the tone, the delivery, the content.
First of all, good to be with you.
Yeah.
On Khamenei's sermon, as it was in your program, this is the first time after 4 years that he's leading the prayers. The last time being after General Soleimani was assassinated in 2020. What I understood from Khamenei's tone, speech, and the content was his message of defiance, warning, and solidarity with the Arab population and the axis of resistance, and that there's a reason that he spoke. Part of his sermon was in Arabic. I don't think anyone who was sitting in the audience, spoke Arabic or understood Arabic. But the message is clear that he's talking to the people of the region, the Palestinians, the Lebanese, the Yemenis also, who might be listening to him, and he's sending the message of support because these guys will be paying attention to what Iran says and does. And so I think that he wanted to ramp up support among Iran's proxy forces. Also, him leading the prayers after 4 years, I think that was to shore up domestic support. There is a constituency in Iran who was complaining that the Iranian government did not respond to Khamenei's assassination. And if it doesn't respond, the Israelis will take more assertive action. And this is the moment that Iran actually has to respond. So altogether, I think that his message is what was message of defiance, and also the threat that if the Israelis are going to take action against Iran, Iran will not rush, but will also deliver a response, which will be, in his words, rational and in a timely fashion.
How do you think his words will have been received in the so-called axis of resistance? So those fighting in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Syria, in Gaza, who are allied with Iran, but who Israel has been able to pick off with great power, great accuracy in some cases, and with determination to do far more.
Well, absolutely. But again, as I said, they're all looking up to him to see what he says. After the assassination of Haniyeh in Tehran, Iran did not respond, apparently because the Americans had warned that this will have consequences. And Iranians, despite all the rhetoric, ended up not responding initially to that. But after the Israelis went after members of Hezbollah, the decapitation of the senior leadership, the pager attack, the walkie-talkie attack, the strike on Hassan Nasrallah, the late leader of Hezbollah, which also killed an Iranian IRGC general. I think that they thought that if they don't respond to this, then Iran's proxy forces will look up and see that Iran is not doing anything, so they might change their calculation. So I feel that there was a pressure and predicament in Tehran on how to respond to those attacks, to keep Iran's proxy forces, which in a way are Iran's first line of defense against the Israelis. They should not change their calculation when it comes to Iran or fighting for Iran or on behalf of Iran.
But they must know that Iran can't protect them. Iran can't even protect their leaders on its own soil. And Prime Minister Netanyahu did say earlier this week, we can reach you wherever you are in Iran. And look at the front pages of the UK papers. The Eye says, UK warning to Israel, attack on Iranian nuclear sites could drag region into a war. How fearful do you think the Iranians are that the Israelis may actually be planning just that, despite the warnings from the Brits, the French, and the Americans?
Well, I'm sure there's a concern that they might attack them, but my guess, I'm not in their head, so I can't really, be 100% sure. But I think that they think that Israelis will not attack Iran's nuclear facilities because it will be a major, major escalation on behalf of Israelis. And I think that the Americans are also, as you said it as well, I think they're warning them not to go after the nuclear facilities. I can explain why this will be a major escalation.
Yes, please do.
Yes. Well, the problem with attacking Iran's nuclear facilities is, first of all, the Israelis don't have the means of destroying Iran's nuclear facilities. The only country in the world with the means of destroying them is the United States with its superior military force.
Is that because the Beirut is so deeply beneath the ground?
Absolutely. They've been hardened with smart material, things like that, under the mountains, under the ground. They're well protected, and the Israelis don't have the bunker buster bombs that the Americans possess. So yes, and also you have to keep in mind, you may destroy a few thousand centrifuges, you may destroy a facility. Sure, Israelis could potentially do that. They could postpone the program, but Iran's nuclear program is at a stage, and this is thanks to Donald Trump, that you can no longer destroy the program or eliminate the program. The knowledge is so institutionalized that they can just create new factories.
Is this because Trump pulled the US out of the Iran nuclear deal and essentially caused it to collapse?
Yes. We have to keep in mind when JCPOA was being implemented and Iranians fully implemented the agreement, and the other parties also fully implemented the agreement. Iran's breakout time was a year. That's 12 months. Now it's between a week and 2. Wow. Iran did not have the technology that it currently has. Iran was operating the first generation, rather inefficient IR1 centrifuges. Now they're operating IR6 and IR8 centrifuges. So they're far more advanced right now. They're enriching to percentages that they didn't enrich under the JCPOA. They're enriching to 60% now. It's far more advanced.
Yeah.
And now going back to the argument, if the Israelis decide to, very quickly, if the Israelis decide to attack, they can postpone it, but then they will give Iranians every incentive to go for the bomb.
Yeah. Sina, thank you very much indeed. Sina Azodi is a professorial lecturer of international affairs at the George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs. And as you can hear, he's a specialist in Iran's nuclear program and national security. Dominic says, is the supreme leader of Iran always called Ayatollah? Now, how you've spelled it, Khomeini, that was a previous one who was the Ayatollah from 1979 to 1989. He died. And so this one is Ayatollah Khamenei, not Khomeini. That was the previous one. This one is Khamenei.
Blasts have been heard in the southern suburbs of Beirut overnight. The Israeli military issued an evacuation order for the area beforehand, warning people in or near a specific building to leave. Let's speak to Stephanie Glinsky, who is Middle East correspondent in Lebanon. Morning, Stephanie.
Good morning.
So bring us up to date with what's happened overnight in these southern suburbs of Beirut.
Yeah, indeed. We just had more attacks on Beirut, even just a few minutes ago again. And the southern suburbs at this point are pretty much engulfed in smoke. I mean, attacks have become relentless. Apparently, some of the recent attacks were targeting Hashem Safadin, who is Hezbollah's potential successor after Nasrallah was killed. Unclear, however, if they actually managed to kill him. But yeah, the attacks overnight again were quite severe. And again, we're having a lot of people leaving. Yesterday, we also had more evacuation orders for villages in the south. About 36 villages were told to leave. People are told to move to the north. And then, of course, there were the bigger attacks on the border with Syria, the main border crossing between Lebanon and Syria. In recent weeks, we've had almost 40,000 people cross that border, Lebanese people, Syrians who want to find safety, who want to go to a place where they aren't being bombed the entire time. So that border crossing has now also been bombed. It was closed yesterday. It's a very, very difficult situation here in Lebanon.
And does that mean then at that crossing in particular between Syria and Lebanon that people are able to still cross that? Because as you say, it has been such a popular crossing point in the last week or so. Can people still use it after the airstrikes?
Yeah, unclear, to be honest. Yesterday it was closed. There are, of course, other crossings into Syria. One is up north, further just north of Tripoli. But if we're looking at figures, so far we've seen about 1.2 million people displaced throughout Lebanon. New evacuation orders are happening on a very regular basis. So this is the Israeli army's spokesperson for the Arabic world, telling people that they need to leave their villages, that they need to get out of their homes because these villages are potential targets for the Israeli army. So can people still leave? They can. What's happening to the main border crossing between Lebanon and Syria? Of course, with the bombings, the road has been completely destroyed. Even to get to the border right now seems impossible.
Now, I know that you've been out speaking to people who have been, I think, in the north of Lebanon, haven't they, after they have been displaced and after airstrikes. Just tell us who you've been speaking to and what they've been telling you.
Yeah, I've been speaking to people both north of Beirut, but then also in the south. And I mainly went to see people in hospitals, so people who have been injured in airstrikes, who are recovering in hospital. Those stories are grim. I spoke to a lot of children. There's one girl, I remember her specifically. She was only 8 years old and she was injured in an airstrike in the south. The entire apartment building collapsed. Allegedly, there were Hezbollah leaders in the building. The Israeli army hasn't confirmed this yet. But this 8-year-old girl is recovering in hospital with severe injuries to her legs, but her entire family has been killed in the strike. Now, she's with her grandparents, and the grandparents told me that they haven't actually told her this yet. They don't know how to tell her. And this is what I've seen and what I've heard with a lot of parents, grandparents. They have these very, very bad news to deliver to their children. They have to explain this war, and they don't really know what to do and how to do this. So in Zara's case, this 8-year-old girl who I met, her grandparents actually haven't told her yet that her parents and her siblings have been killed in the strike. And this was just one of the many conversations. There was another woman I met. She was 36. She lost both of her children in the same strike that Sarah lost her parents in. And she had also lost an eye. Her entire face was freckled, really, with shrapnel wounds. And so these are the stories that you're hearing from the hospitals. People are injured, but people have also lost family members. A lot of children have been killed in this conflict ever since it started.
Gosh. And I'm interested that you say that in the airstrike where the, excuse me, that 8-year-old child lost her entire family, it's because it was believed that there was sort of Hezbollah kind of meeting place or headquarters or whatever under this building. When you talk to people in Lebanon, are they aware that their building is above these kinds of places? Do they say that they know about it, that they didn't know, or that it's not true? I'm just wondering how much there is a knowledge within the community and the civilian population about the movements and locations of Hezbollah.
I think that very much varies. In the case for Sarah and her family, that building was actually in a small village that was a mix of Christians and Sunni people. So they certainly would have not expected that. It really depends on the area. Of course, in the southern suburbs, Dahir, that is very much a Hezbollah stronghold. So people know that Hezbollah is around. And that's also why this area has now completely emptied out. I mean, we're talking about roads that are deserted. It's eerie. It's empty. It's basically a ghost town at this point. This is not the case for other places. In Zara's case, for example, the family certainly did not expect that. Like I said, the building was mostly inhabited by Christian and Sunni families. This was not a Hezbollah stronghold at all. So a lot of the times, civilians are living in their houses. They think they are safe, and the building gets bombed.
Stephanie, thank you ever so much for keeping us up to date. I'm sure we'll speak again. That is Stephanie Glinsky, who is a Middle East correspondent in Lebanon.